Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City of Portage Planning Commission for Monday, July 10th. If you would stand and say the pledge. Mr. Monroe, could you call roll?
Tom Cherry. Here. Gina Geis-Hurst.
Here.
Sam LeBoy.
Here.
John Harrison.
Here.
Charles Thompson.
Here.
Melissa Weidenbach. Here. Kevin Witherspoon.
Here.
Denise Little.
Here. If everybody has had a chance to look at the minutes and if there are no corrections or additions, may I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Monroe, could you call our first order of business?
I can. First item is M0123, Lennar Homes of Indiana, care of James L. Weiser, with Weiser and Wiley LLP, 429 West Lincoln Highway, Schererville, Indiana, requesting a variance from Airport Crossing Plan Development, Article 7, Single Family R2 Residential Development Standards B, Development Standards, Building Materials 1, Materials for Preston Trails Subdivision.
They're at the desk.
Is this on?
I think you're on.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Plan Commission. My name is Jim Weiser, who's been identified by AJ and our address, and I have with me the land acquisition and whatever, and he's got a bunch of other titles that I can't remember, is Todd Clevin from Lennar. And briefly, I want to just give you a quick overview, and then I'll let Todd speak to the specific issue as it's a design build, or a designing and a building criteria, building standards criteria that he's much more familiar with than I am as legal counsel. You may recall that a little over a year ago, sometime over a year ago, we appeared before the Plan Commission, and the sole issue at that time was the approval, or the submission and the approval of covenants and restrictions for this subdivision. It's kind of a unique situation. The subdivision was recorded 17 years ago with very little activity that occurred from a prior developer. And Lennar decided to, with the success that they had with the Brookside subdivision and the way they were just treated so well by this community, they decided to undertake that one. It's an 86-lot single-family subdivision, and they decided to go forward with it. At that time, this particular issue we're here at tonight wasn't presented or specifically discussed at that time. Since then, there's, and I'll let Todd speak to that, an issue has arisen regarding a need for us, pursuant to the PUD articles, to apply for a variance from one aspect of and one aspect only, of the standards that were set forth approximately 17 years ago in the PUD document. And what I'll do now is let Todd explain that to you, and then kind of move forward from there, and we'll be happy to respond to any comments or questions from the public, or any questions that you all may have. So thank you for your time. Go ahead, Todd.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, and first and foremost, congratulations on your facility here. It's beautiful. I've done so much business in the city and the other facility, and I remember the mayor gave me a tour when this was about 70% done. It's nice to finally be here and continuing the work that we're doing. And if I'm grinning, I apologize. My nephew His wife went in for emergency C-section. Everything's fine. He's actually works for a major competitor of ours and kind of followed my footsteps, and it's just so if I'm grinning, that's why. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Council, and thank you, AJ. They've been great, and the staff has just been amazing. We've had huge success with Brookside. As Jim indicated, this is an existing PUD. It was a 17-year-old recorded document just south of Coles. The property remained vacant. It never did come to fruition other than the commercial northeast corner. Working with your staff and finding other parcels without going down a rabbit hole and getting into the weeds, I just want to give you a little brief background on Preston Trails and how it came about. So it was an existing PUD. It was a longer one, even though in the very beginning we thought it would be more streamlined because it was already approved and just had to go through staff. We did come across some hair on the property with a pipeline restriction, and all those homes to the west in the Altoff community, there was a major surveyor error where all those homes actually overlapped our property by 20 feet, and we had to halt and try to find a way to work around that. Unbeknownst to those homeowners, they probably didn't even realize it. It wasn't until we did our Alta survey that we discovered that. And rather than walking and pulling the plug, we put our heads together with our competition and said, how do we go about this? How do we solve that? We were able to still make Preston Trails work and actually deed that property over to Altoff and corrected what I think could have been a major issue. Yeah, you could see it right there on the GIS, that dotted line. So that dotted line has been surveyed, deeded over to Altoff, and basically it makes the plat whole now. At one time, that plat did overlap our property. So I'm very proud to work with competition and not butt heads, and Altoff has been very great with us in other communities, and we always try to scratch each other's back. When this property came to our attention, it came in two different directions from us. One, our acquisition gentleman found it, but also AJ asked me if we were interested in it. We sat down, we looked at the PUD, and there was a lot of detailed things that just would not work with our product or the current market conditions. And we were able to work around that. AJ is the director of the PUD, and he was very accommodating, and I think we have a great plan. At that time, we, pursuant to that PUD, we had to come in front of this board to get the covenants and restrictions approved. At that time, that was in April of 2022. We did successfully receive approval for those covenants and restrictions. It designates us as the HOA, residential HOA entity, as well as a designated builder. At that time, I also submitted the 4 plans I have in front of me now that I will resubmit again for your viewing as I continue with the presentation. I'm sorry, so if I may approach the bench, I'll pass them out. Thank you. And it'd probably just be easiest if you just take one and pass them down. So what you're receiving are the 4 plans that we are proposing to build in Preston Trails on the 86 units, and each plan has 3 elevations. And as I'm assuming, hopefully you've all have experienced the Brookside community, which is well underway now. We're probably 50% built out. When this property came to our attention, we wanted to definitely continue with it, but we were concerned because it was right down the road from an existing Lennar store, as we call it, or a Lennar community. And that's very difficult. You know, it's hard enough to compete with your competition, but how do you not compete with yourself? So we decided to go all ranch out here and tackle and capture a market that we feel is still very vibrant in the community. And so it's not geared, or it's not age targeted, but it definitely will be attractive for the active adult, but we also thought it might be attractive for first-time home buyers. So we submitted these plans at the time of the covenants and restrictions presentation. It was approved contingent upon in-house red line negotiations because we were still trying to determine if we were going to go maintenance-free or not. We decided to go maintenance-free, so the only thing that has changed from those plans that were submitted to you in April of 2022 is we decided to put a 4-foot garage extension. So the garages will be 4 feet deeper for storage and stuff like that. So that will be a standard option. So as we broke ground and we continued, well, I must back up. Since April of 2022, all of a sudden interest rates went up overnight and we became a deer in headlights. When I say we, I'm not just saying our division, but Lennar Homes as a nation wide company. We had many meetings with corporate, and our motto was we're going to build through this. And we did just that. So as we were trying to strategically figure out how we're going to build through it, we just started offering huge incentives, buying down rates, so we made sure that we continued to build through this and fed the market because there's definitely a need for homes. While we were giving all those incentives, we were behind the scenes adjusting our product. We have not adjusted the product here from the very beginning. I've worked with AJ staff well over a year, and if anything, it was just a misunderstanding or oversight on our side, not understanding the minor changes and or what the director has power to do or not. But as we went vertical here, I was seeking our approvals in writing because we're getting ready to record the final plat, and I came across, it was just communication and not emails, and I questioned AJ. I said, you know, I wonder if I can't find anything in writing, neither could he when we discussed it, if we discussed it. And we just thought that it would be best if we came in front of you and requested this variance the proper way so there would be nothing down the road that somebody could gather and question. So the reason we're in front of you this evening is those homes, as you see, are the ones we're building, but they're vinyl sided. The community to the west is vinyl siding. Our community in Brookside has vinyl siding, but there is a stipulation in the ordinance that states that the building material shall be predominantly made up of brick, wood, stucco, and synthetic cement board. So that is something that we do not do. We are a vinyl sided builder, but again, I'm always a very proactive person. When I came across that, and you know, there's so many conversations, and I try to check all my boxes before I send it off to our our construction vertical side. And that's when AJ and I started talking, and he said, you know, well, let's have a special meeting to keep you moving forward. And I appreciate the opportunity that you gave us to have a special meeting. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the public notice in time. So with that, the next one would have been July 5th, and we said, let's just wait a week. Yeah, I have a lot of heat on me because we're wanting to move forward. But again, I thank you. But we are here seeking a variance from the 17-year-old PUD to allow vinyl-sided homes. So everything you see in front of you, you know, the elevations are the same, but that's vinyl siding. So with that, I'll open up to any questions that you may have, or AJ or staff, and again, thank you
First,
for
we're
the
going to
opportunity.
go and open for the public hearing.
Sure, okay.
So, and then we'll let you answer everybody's questions that
Very
they
good.
may have for you.
Should we sit back down, or do they use the podium?
No, you're fine.
Oh, great.
They will go to the podium.
Okay, thank you.
Before I open the public hearing, if there is anybody here that does not feel comfortable speaking in public, may turn in a written statement, and that will become part of the minutes. We do have a lot of people here tonight. We want everybody that wants to speak. We ask that you just don't repeat the same thing. If you just want your name on the minutes that you did get up and speak in support of maybe something somebody else said, that is fine also. So I will now open the public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner? Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner? Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner? Is there anybody here to speak against the petitioner? Is there anybody here to speak against the petitioner? Is there anybody here to speak against the petitioner? If not, I close the public hearing and open for questions from the commission.
What is the grade of vinyl siding you use, or the gauge?
I don't know the exact gauge. I'd say probably 0.2 or 0.3. It's not the Dutch lap 0.44, but it's the same vinyl siding that you see in Brookside that we're putting up out there. I'm not sure of the actual gauge, but it's the same vinyl siding that you see in Brookside, the subdivision about a half mile north that we're doing.
Usually we're in the low 0.41, 0.40, up to 0.48, you know.
Okay.
Is typically, builder's grade is the low fours.
I would say that's probably what it is. It's exactly what we're currently doing at Brookside. It's what we put in all of our communities.
There'll be brick used as well, correct?
Yes. So we have we use our own anti-monotony code internally and also nationwide, so we do not make sure we don't have homes that look exactly like right next to each other and diagonal and across the street. So we have a code that we follow internally. And so that's why we offer so many elevations. And we let the market bear that as well. Some people, want the more affordable one or the more expensive one, and other people are okay with a little lesser. So like I said, there's 4 plans, but there's actually 12 elevations that you'll see throughout the community.
Thank you.
How many lots are currently sold? Oh, well, there'll be 86 total. We're going to construct it in 2 phases. And I think we underwrote this probably selling about 4.5 per month. So we should be well established, all vegetated within, I would think, a little over 2 years. Park installed and fully improved. And it will also connect the thoroughfare of Sterling Creek to Airport Road. So you'll have that full thoroughfare where it currently just dead ends right now. That road will continue. And the PUD did describe that that road would remain open. It could not front home sites. So no driveways will be along that road. That theme will continue throughout the Airport Road.
Any other questions? If no questions, may I have a motion?
And this is just strictly regarding the vinyl changes, nothing to do with the layout of the
Correct.
subdivision?
Correct.
Thank you for
Because in
clarifying
the
that.
original Sterling Creek, at that point, the city was looking at upgrading all of our exterior materials. And like you said, it's been 17 years. So that change never was accepted, I guess, is the best way to say that.
Thank you.
My concern with the gauge of it is not having a hailstorm and taking them all out. If we're using or if you're using a standard contractor grade opposed to a standard residential grade. I wish you would have had that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know the gauge. I know that it's not the .44, which I think you see on more higher end, like it's more like a Dutch layout, but again, it's the same vinyl siding that we're doing in Brookside, and I think those homes are pretty aesthetically pleasing.
Residential.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry.
AJ, do we require a standard vinyl siding gauge?
We do not.
Leading back to my opening comments with how we continue to build through this, it's just very important that we stay competitive. And we were able to achieve that with Brookside. And, prior to the interest rates going up, you saw lumber go sky high, and it's constantly a revolving door, and it's just dodging the punches here. But like I said, I do not know of any issues with our vinyl siding that we've had thus far. And matter of fact, our division, 1 out of 37, our customer service, our warranty department, for lack of better terms, is number 1 out of the nationwide 37 divisions. So we're very proud of that. So what that means is basically we do tend to all of our phone calls, all the warranty calls. I mean, we have our it's almost a white glove service. And so if there was ever an issue, I mean, we're gonna stand by it.
May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the requested variance for the residential development standard to allow vinyl siding.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Monroe, could you call roll?
Tom Cherry,
Yes.
Gina Geis-Hurst,
Yes.
Sam LaBoy,
Yes.
John Harrison,
No.
Charles Thompson,
Yes.
Melissa Weidenbach. Yes. Kevin Witherspoon,
Yes.
Denise Little.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, cooperation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I keep kicking that.
Could you call our next order of business?
This is P0222 MPGA LLC, care of Kevin Koros and Bill Ferngren, McMahon Associates, Inc., 4501 Airport Drive, Unit 101, Valparaiso, Indiana, seeking primary plat approval for Northwood Trail subdivision, 34.8 acres at the 600 block of Old Porter Road, includes 82 lots.
Good evening.
Good evening. Are we ready?
We are ready.
Thank you. My name is Bill Ferngren from Ferngren Law Offices, 570 Vale Park Road, Valparaiso, Indiana, 219-464-4500. I have Kevin Koros from McMahon Engineering here with me today, and Jason Galliana, principal with the developer of the project. The case before you tonight is P0222, which is proposed Northwood Trail. It's a primary plat proposed for you tonight. This is a public hearing. Public notice has been sent out. I see a number of people here tonight that received that notice. So the property before you, I believe you all have a copy of the plat and then obviously access to the parcel on the GIS. The property consists of about 34.8 acres plus or minus, and it's got a couple of different zoning classifications. The approximate north 2.5 acres is zoned commercial C1, and just your small medium commercial, and the balance of the property is zoned R2, which is your residential subdivision classification. I'll start with the commercial property on the north. The proposal is just one single lot. There is no prospective user at this time. It's unknown. That parcel, at the time it would be developed, would need to come back before your local development review committee to determine what the standards are for the lot at that time and determine how many parking spaces, all of those sorts of things that are in compliance. That property, again, is about 2.5 acres. So you know also on June 13th of this year, we did go before the Board of Works and received a sidewalk waiver for that parcel. The Board of Works determined they did not want a sidewalk, at least at this time, along the frontage on Melton Road in that location. So that moves us to the balance of the property, which is proposed to have 81 single-family residential lots. All of the lots meet or exceed your 8,400 square foot minimum standards. Many of them are 8,800 square feet, all the way up to approximately 24,000 square feet for just a few of the more uniquely configured parcels. Again, traditional single-family homes, likely to be constructed in 3 phases. I'm not certain exactly what drawing you're looking at this particular time, But if you look at, if you have this one in front of you, each of the phases are identified on the drawing, and it's kind of a purplish color, if you will, in the center that straddles Old Porter Road. That would be Phase 1, and that would include the construction of the detention basin and outlot shown there. Phase 2 would be north of that phase, and then Phase 3 ultimately built out on the south side of Old Porter Road. Traditional sanitary sewer and traditional water would be provided to each of these sites. In a few moments, I'll ask Kevin to speak to you about how he proposes the stormwater management on the site, but I will mention to you that the one outlot on the south side of Old Porter Road, Outlot A, as it's shown here, is the principal detention basin. That property would be owned by a property owners association, and we've eliminated essentially all other property owner association ownership areas on this plat just to this particular area. And the POA would be obligated to maintain that stormwater facility ongoing, but in working with staff, what we've created is a system whereby if the POA did not do that, the city could provide notice to the POA saying, you need to do this, you need to bring this into compliance, and if you don't, we have the authority to do that. And upon doing so, would have the right to charge back each of the lot owners in the subdivision, including placement of a lien against their parcel for their respective proportion of the cost of that work. So the defense mechanism, if that's the right word, is in place to give the city the protection to make sure that they can get in there and undertake that sort of work. Landscaping, what we've done on the parcel, this has changed a little bit since I first got started, but we eliminated what was originally the extension of Candy Lane. That's no longer there. That has been changed to a preservation easement, which is identified on your plat. And I've created some language, or provided some language rather, that I've used on a number of different projects throughout Porter County and Lake County that allow that this area would essentially be a set-aside area preserved in its natural state, subject to some reasonable limitations with respect to if there are damaged trees there or if there's other unsafe conditions, those could naturally be removed to eliminate the harm. But the idea of taking these trees out and eliminating them is not permitted. That likewise is something that's included in both the restrictive covenants, and if you look on the plat drawing that I just showed to you, there's a provision on that plat itself that identifies the preservation area. That was something that I offered to staff and made sure that we included on this drawing as well as in the subdivision plat. The property, if you were out to the property or looked on the GIS map there, it's in a residential zone, very nice neighborhoods all surrounding it, and would like to continue with that, with this residential project here. There's a pretty significant amount of growth of trees on the property, which from the street side would appear to be better than maybe what it is. What's taken place on this property over years is that there's a lot of volunteer growth, if you will, and many, if not most, any quality types of trees aren't located on the property, even though it may appear that there are. Having said that, the goal here would to be preserving as many trees as possible. And on, certainly where the roads are going to be or other infrastructure is going to be located, trees will naturally be removed as part of the installation of those items. But anything remaining within lots would be done on a case-by-case basis, depending on how that particular homeowner elects to build on their property. We have, with that buffer area to the north, that provides a great buffer area between the commercial property and just continues with things. We've put in place the outlot areas along the west side of the property. We've simply called them outlet areas, but they're really set in place to accommodate the city's proposed bike trail system in that location. And those are all set forth in accordance with what the staff has advised us the plans are for that property. Access to that trail is important, and it's an important feature to this particular development. And I've worked with staff on how do we protect that, how do we preserve that, what's that going to look like going forward. So the two locations for the access to the trail would be in between lots 4 and 5, and then what are shown as lots 10 and 11. Oops, sorry, did the same thing the guy before me did. So the concern was, what does this look like as you're leaving the neighborhood and going to the trail or the trail towards the neighborhood? And we did not want to create what would appear to be kind of a corral, if you will. So we've eliminated the height of the fence, or limited the height of the fence rather to 4 feet. And that would also be set back away from, it would be on the property lines or out of the easement areas rather that are create the transfer from the trail to the subdivision and vice versa. So it would not appear to be a channel of land that you would use, but it would appear to be open, the fence height being limited to 4 feet in that location. So that sort of corral situation would be eliminated. And again, there are 2 locations between lots 4 and 5 and lots 10 and 11. Both of those exist. Again, in working with staff on how do we protect that situation for the city going forward, we've done 2 things. One, we've included that in the covenants for the subdivision, identifying that there are limits, what people can do on those particular lots, developing their lots. We've also added a depiction of the limited areas on the drawing itself, as well as if you look at the final paragraph, if you will, on the additions to the plat on about the middle of the way down on the left-hand side. There is that language that essentially mirrors what's in the covenants, taken out of the covenants and put on the plat. In working with staff, they felt while the covenants are nice, they're important, and they're enforceable, really the teeth of how that's enforced, the city's much more comfortable with having that language on the plat. So we have included that in that location as well. With respect to roadways, these are all public roads that are would be all improved to your requirements. They're all public rights of way to city standards. As I indicated, the sidewalk waiver has been granted, assuming this plat moves forward, along Melton Road. And Old Porter Road has become a pretty important topic of discussion, and understandably so. It's a main road in your city. And it's a road that will naturally be interfered with or impeded at some point in time as part of the construction, which is to be expected as the part of any construction of a project. Part of the infrastructure improvements will include transfer back and forth between the north and the south side of the road with stormwater and sanitary sewer infrastructure improvements. And so in order to build those, we recognize that there's going to be a serious effort made towards traffic control, construction sequencing, and those sorts of matters. In speaking with Mr. Monroe earlier this week, we talked about how to discuss that, how do we move that forward, and he suggested that perhaps this should also be encompass discussion with the Board of Works, which I thought was great, because at the end of the day, the Board of Works, it's their road. It's their road to determine how things are built, where things are built, and that sort of thing. So having their involvement, I thought was very important and a great idea. So we're anxiously looking forward to working with them. But do recognize the impact on the roadway during construction. My understanding is that the roadway in and of itself as designed is fine, and we're excited to proceed with working with the Board of Works. At this time, I'd like to ask Kevin if he could explain to you how the stormwater is supposed to work on this particular site.
Thanks, Bill. A little backstory on the property, if you don't know. Apparently, this site was utilized as sand mining from the steel mills. There was or had planned on trails or railroad spurs on the property at one point. You'll notice that if you understand topography and you kind of see how this topography is laid on the property, there are a lot of different fingers, if you will, of topography that are going on. Those were areas where sand was dug. So, and we have confirmed this through the request of the planning department regarding some of the pond soil areas. It is definitely all sand. Because of the uniqueness of the sand, but also the flatness of the site, though it does look like it should have some considerable grade, it does not. All in all, it is a relatively flat site. Because of that, we have No overland flow for stormwater plan for the site. Everything has been calculated, proven to fit within our underground storage system. Most normal sites, you can kind of make your storm pipe a bit smaller and be able to convey some of that stormwater over land to where this pond will be. But due to that grading relief and sand issues, it was needed to be contained all within the storm pipe system. So you'll notice that depending on what plan you have in front of you, sheet C 3.0 would probably be a good one to look at if you're following me on this. There are some areas where we will cross the road to drain the northern half of this project to the outlot area 2, which is, as Bill had described, specifically set aside for infrastructure drainage. That will then release to an existing storm system on Tanya Street. The southern part of that will drain all by gravity as well and will find its way into the pond as well. That's about it for the stormwater.
Okay. And I think at this point, we're excited to move forward with this project. We've worked pretty hard over the last several months, being before the Development Review Committee, addressing a number of different concerns and continuing to do that. And we're interested in hearing the public's comments tonight as well as yours to see if there's other things we can address and move forward with the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now open the public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner? Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner? Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner? Is there anybody here to speak against the petitioner? Okay, and what I'm going to ask you to do, because we do have so many people that would like to speak, I'll have one come, and then I would like to have one in waiting, so that we're not taking 2, 3, 4 minutes between speakers. And then whoever would like to speak next may go and stand on the wall.
If you'd like me to move these.
Could I see what you guys are giving?
Is it possible that we can have a paper copy of what you guys are talking about?
Okay, wait a minute, wait, please, please. If we'd like to take like a 5-minute break, everybody can come up and take a look at it. Okay.
Do you have any?
I don't have any additional copies.
There were some handed out prior to the meeting, but
Unless you want to feel like it's necessary to lay some of these out too, more of the detailed
I think
ones,
that one's going to be the easiest one for everyone to see.
for the simple overall picture of it. Sure.
This is Teddy Lynn, that's where I live. Matt lives there. But you're here. We're up here. So you guys are probably right.
Okay. Ma'am? Please. I'm gonna get,
Just throw it at one, the others will be.
okay, and as we speak again, if you're saying the same thing that the person in front of you, but you do want to be part of the record, please just say, please. We can't hear. That way we know that you were in favor of the same thing that another person had said, but you would be part of the record. So I'll go ahead, if you'll state your name, address.
My name is Theodore Uzelak Sr. We would like to have a buffer between our subdivision, our backyards, and the new subdivision. Apparently, there's a 15-foot drainage easement at the north end of lots 16, 17, 18.
And
there's
we will
also-
have answers after we close the public hearing. So we're not going to ask each question to the
Well, I'm not-
applicants right now. So we're going to take notes.
Okay, so anyway.
And have that for you.
There's an easement, and it's for utilities, and it's a preservation easement. We would like to have a buffer before these people, before their lots end. Between us and them, we would just like natural ground. The way it is right now, according to that, they will butt up against my back fence. Okay? And it's a preservation easement, which is 15 foot, which is shorter than two pieces of plywood put together, which is shorter than your average car length. 15 foot is nothing. Absolutely nothing. We would like a buffer of 20 feet, and then their backyards can start. We need a separation from old to new. That's what we would like.
Thank you.
And that's really all I've got to say.
Hello, my name is George Graves. I live on Tanya Street. And we bought at the commissioner's sale the property beyond our fence. There's several lots that weren't bought at these sales by the owners, and we would just like to see that the neighbor's yard of the new subdivision doesn't jut in next to ours, or there has to be some way to separate the property for encroachment. That's my only question.
Thank you. Next, anybody else to speak?
I have actually a letter to read. We were told that to come to this meeting to suggest or object. But my question is, how can we suggest when we've never even seen the plan before tonight? All we know is 81 lots. And, well, now we have a visual, but every one of my questions have still remain. So we must therefore object, saying, no way. There needs to be more communication in the planning phases of these developments. Input from others, especially the neighbors most affected, need to be sought after, considered, and implemented whenever possible. The earlier, the better. It seems like we were invited late to the discussion as an afterthought. After all, developers come and go. It is those who live in the homes they build and their neighbors that will be left to live with the development. The residents, not the developers, should be the priority. Like I said, we have so many questions. In the very short time we've had to consider them, many revolve around the city services and how this abundance of homes will impact the current infrastructure. Will these homes be on the same sewer and stormwater lines that are already overtaxed on Tanya Street? There have been sewer backups into basements and stormwater collection in front of homes in the last year even with our current system demands. What will the effect on other city services like EMS, fire, and police be? How about traffic flow? Will this connect to Route 20? I guess it won't, but I didn't know that. Or just on Old Porter Road and at how many places? Have you also checked with the post office? Last winter, although it was a mild winter, we had mail delivery reduced every 2 or 3 days for a while. Adding 81 homes to a postal route is no small matter. What will the impact be on all concerned in services? Also, how will the current property prices be affected? Small lots without benefit of the woods is detrimental. Will there be rules against rentals? Many animals have made their homes in these woods that we've come to love. Deer, red fox, raccoon, possums, birds of numerous species, they're all either going to die or be displaced. More specifically, even right behind our house at the end of Tanya Street, we have sand ridges still there. Some of them are 3 to 6 feet high. Will those remain as part of a wooded area like others have said? I mean, even building a fence along those would be awfully awkward. And another question is, how will this subdivision fit into the overall development plans for the north side? I understand that green space was supposed to be included in that plan, including a walking trail, among other things. Now, I don't see the walking trail on here at all. Has the overall comprehensive plan been discarded for this subdivision? The premature deforestation begun on a weekend last fall shows callous disregard for the woods themselves, but also the neighbors who have lived there for the last 50 or 60 years. We are heartbroken, angry, and alarmed that such stripping of the woods could have been done even before any plans were proposed, much less approved. The system certainly needs to be changed. We still strongly desire that as much green wooded space as possible preserved for all the benefits that they provide. The wooded areas of Portage that made the city so desirable are quickly disappearing. These are, in fact, some of the last woods remaining. Just for the record, I am Jermaine Marsh, and I live on Tanya Street.
Thank you. Very nice. I also live on Tanya Street. My name is Annette Mtg. And we have been very heartbroken this whole time. And as Jermaine stated, there has to be some changes made. There's too many things that are undetermined. Even this doesn't make sense to us always, as we are just kind of thrown into it and given us a 5-minute time to look over things and determine what the rest of our livelihood is going to be. I did write a letter. I'm going to state this now. Dear planners of our community of Portage, I am not opposed to progress and development in the community of Portage. I am opposed to the development that destroys our urban forest and the tree canopy provided by their presence. There is no doubt about the benefits trees provide for both humans and wildlife, as Jermaine was so quick to tell us. With this, I understand that I do not own the woods, and there's a plan for development of this property. As plans progress, my suggestions for consideration are these. A buffer zone, as Mr. Uzelak stated, between Tanya Street resident properties and the new lots that are to be developed, and a determination as who's going to take care of those, and certainly how that's going to proceed. Candy Street was stated as remaining a dead-end street. Keep our entity our own street and not integrate things that are new to Portage. Keep it as its own entity. Lot sizes and the style of homes built to reflect the existing homes that adjoin the property. Most of the homes alongside are ranch style with a very few 2-story homes. And I'm also questioning, if you say 8,400, I don't really know what it is. Like ours is 80 feet by 140. Another space, I was looking at Boardwalk. Some of those on the interior are like 85 and 125. And I've driven past there, and they're very tight locations. I'm looking at development and how the city is going to progress. And I feel myself, I'm adding this in, there's too much progress in terms, what do you want to call progress in terms of development. And I think sometimes there needs to be a pause. And I feel like there needs to be a pause. There's just so much uprooting. And where we move to, the trees, the ambiance of our city is like totally changing. When I drive toward Route 6, I go early. I don't want to be in that whole network of things. Someone has reflected the idea of Maryville. Okay, you want to go shop, whatever, but there's that quiet, peaceful calm that is also indicative of trees. I've got a whole list of the benefits of the trees. And of course, my last point is to retain as many trees as possible. I've heard people say underbrush, and I've heard people say like secondary trees. Well, guess what? There has to be something more done about the trees of our community. It isn't just discarding those that are just there, but actually enhancing the development and the neighborhoods. If it isn't quite right, fix it. Trees are an asset of our community. Clear cutting and developments need to be partnered with tree strategies. We have the responsibility to maintain, remove, and further planning to build our city's tree canopy for future generations. As a friend recently told me in conversation, trees live a long time, but they don't live forever. So you just randomly cut things. I can tell you right now, the noise that we hear from Tanya Street is far more than when I first moved there 23 years ago. There's been clear cutting on Route 20 alongside I-94 with the trucks driving and driving. I go in my backyard, I can hear that noise. Then I go down Route 20, and an area that was once, excuse me for really getting ramped up here, but an area that is by Route 20, which used to be like motels and not so desirable appearances, they took away trees that were like this big around and just laid them on the side. And that's what I've been seeing. I've just seen careless, random cutting. How long do you think those trees are going to take to grow again? And in terms of benefits, I'm going to talk about them because they're important to be reminded. Water management, not just the basin, but the true natural development of how water flows away. Traffic calming and driver calming. I was amazed by that you don't get ramped up because there's this ambiance of trees. The physical health, the biking, the walking. We talk about a trail. Where is it going? There's Route 20. Where are you supposed to go? How are you supposed to get across to the Miraplex where there's other trails there? You're going to send kids across the road to go to the other side? This makes no sense to me. The other thing is mental health, reducing violent crime. That's a known information in terms of Chicago, where Mayor Daley planted trees, planted flowers. The effect of it was tremendous. Economic health, beauty, cooler air, cleaner air, add oxygen, remove carbon dioxide, property values, noise reduction, wildlife habitats. And this is referenced from Reliance Foundry Company, Ltd., and OneTreePlanted.org. And certainly, that's all I got to say.
Could I have a copy of, may I have a copy of your letter?
Are we supposed to sign
Okay,
this?
thank you.
My name's David Marsh. I live on Tanya Street. And this is literally going into my backyard. I've lived there almost 43 years. We've enjoyed the woods back there, the quiet, the wildlife. It's been very pleasant. And it brings up the property value. And it seems that everything is about $1 now. It's about $1. So I listened to the previous people that talked about putting vinyl siding instead of a brick home. Made me think. When I go to a subdivision and I see brick homes, I expect to pay more because it's a nicer area. They've invested in it. When I go somewhere where things are on the cheap, crowded together, not so much. It's going to be cheaper. They didn't invest so much. We have a neighborhood that's older. It's 40-some years old.
but there's space, there's trees, it's quiet, it's pleasant. That, I'm afraid, is going to be lost when they begin development. We witnessed animals running across the road wildly when they began to cut stuff down with no warning at all. So I don't expect it to be a very quiet or pleasant neighborhood when they're constructing things. I imagine it's going to decrease the property value of my home and other homes because people are not going to want to put up with it. So as a planning commission, and I've only been to a few meetings, and I didn't realize how things were done, I had always assumed the planning commission was way ahead of the game, making plans to ensure the city grew in a certain way. And I don't know if we're seeing that. From what I've seen, it seems that pretty much anybody that comes up with an idea to put something up there gets approved. And it seems that we're kind of going down on the cheap route. So my question would be, not only the size of the lots, which I guess they said 8,400 feet maybe, square feet, what size homes? Are these going to be brick homes? Are they going to have vinyl siding? How good is the siding going to be? You know, what requirements are we requiring? Like my wife said, we've had sewer backups in our neighborhood. We've had storm water just last week from the storm. There was storm water standing on the streets. So now you're going to add to it 80 houses. We have 44 houses, I think, on Candy and Tanya. So you're going to double that with this new subdivision. So that's quite a bit of burden on the existing infrastructure. So we were amazed when somebody got the property for what I hear, amazingly less than what it was listed for 20 years. And now here's this development, and we're very unhappy about the suddenness. And until tonight, no clue at all what the proposal is. And I'm also questioning, since they have a proposal, is it mostly just a rubber stamp of, okay, go ahead? I don't know. That's your guys' job. And I'm just challenging you to think about the future of the city, not only here, which really concerns me, but all over. You know, cut the corners. Yeah, okay, yeah, great. I don't know. It just seems like they're stepping on your toes a bit, but that's my thought.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Richard Dominguez. I live on the northwest corner of Candy Avenue, right abutted to where these gentlemen say is commercial. Is that correct?
We'll answer your questions.
Well, is that correct? They're saying it's commercial, that blue area or turquoise?
No, the area on that fronts on, if you look at the map right there, look at,
The blue area right here on the TV screen,
Yeah,
up here.
That's all-
the-
that's all
the commercial
commercial.
property fronting on Melton Road. I
Okay.
believe you told me you lived on Kennedy.
yeah.
Kennedy's over here. No, it doesn't, because Kennedy ends where, right here?
Candy.
it's on Candy.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
So our property is right next to that commercial area. Do these gentlemen own that too?
Yes.
So in other words, you guys can do anything you want with that property, and I could have a gas station next to my property, I could have a car shop, an auto parts shop. See, I'm kind of wondering about how this all came to be. That property, like some of these people have said, had been for sale for decades. And then all of a sudden, somebody steps in and brokers it. I'd kind of like to know how that happened. Out of the blue. I came home one afternoon, it was already getting dark, and I see these guys cutting paths all through the woods. I didn't know what they were doing, so I asked them. And I don't know if the gentleman's here or not, but he basically told me you should have bought the property yourself. Yeah, that would be a nice trick, wouldn't it? But apparently, somebody brokered this deal for them. And, okay, they're going to make a buck out of it. I understand that. That's the way things are done. But they need to do things right by the people that live around this area. A lot of people are asking for a buffer area, and I think they deserve it. I moved into that area because it's nice, calm, quiet. And at the time, my mom was alive. And I got her out of Gary and got her over there. Now, we're the age of my mom when we moved in there. And we still would love the quiet. But apparently that's going to end. I just think there's some more questions that need to be answered. Whether we'll get them answered or not, I know this is going to continue. This is an ongoing process. Time will tell.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shonda Cragen. I live on Tanya Street. My property will not be butting up against the new development, but I've seen what's happened behind my street when a new development went in. I would definitely, I mean, some people, you guys are saying that Candy Avenue is not going to be extended to any extent. If that can be a total guarantee, there's not going to be a cul-de-sac with any extra houses, that's one of my concerns, because I don't know if any of you have ever been down Candy Avenue, but I used to live on Tanya Street growing up. I moved out. My parents passed away. I bought their house, so I'm back there. Candy Avenue, when I moved back to that house 5 years ago, it's a pitfall. And I know it's because of the water damage from the storms. When I take my dog for a walk, I've stopped walking down Candy Avenue because the street is in such despair due to the drainage. And now you're talking about wanting to add more, and then you're saying you're gonna connect the drainage onto Tanya Street. Well, Tanya Street's got some drainage issues too, but Candy's got some major ones. So that's another concern. And then are these houses that you're gonna be putting in, are they gonna be 2- and 3-story houses, or has that part been determined? That's another question I have. Because most of our houses are ranch, you know, that's the way it was. In 1976, the majority of the houses were ranch. And then basically, because everybody else is offered, you know, but we would like a little bit of a buffer zone. And there is so much wildlife, to try to help the wildlife a little bit, and just to give our city a little more oxygenation because of those trees, and then to help with some of the noise. I know it's going to be developed. And I know when my parents bought the property in 1976, they were told that there was a gas line there and nothing would ever be built there. That was one reason why my parents picked Portage over some other cities. And lo and behold, they're up above in heaven and looking down, and I'm sure they're saying, somebody lied to us in 1976 when we picked that property, but it's history now. But those are my concerns. Mm.
My name is Diana Nolan. I live on Tanya. I actually hadn't planned on getting up here and saying anything, but I do want to reiterate what everybody else has said. I have a bit of land beyond the fence of my backyard, and I purchased that specifically so that something like this wouldn't happen or would affect me less. One of the things that I have a problem with this whole thing is trust. I was only told what was happening, like one gentleman said, when he came home and saw trees being cut. Now, I don't know what, I've heard a lot of rumors as to how this transpired and all of this other kind of stuff, but my main concern, again, is what everybody else has said. We love our woods. And I have some concerns about some of the language that I heard. I've been taking notes. But one of the things was taking out trees that are not safe. Who determines that? I know that there are some trees that are damaged. I know I've seen trees that have been taken out by lightning. Trust me, I keep an eye on the woods, just like all of us do. And I've cut some down myself, or had them cut down. But I have lived there for almost 40 years. And I just, I used to come home from work I'm retired now, and I still do this, but I used to come home from work every night and sit down with a glass of tea in my backyard and listen to the birds. When I buried my dog, there were deer looking over the fence, watching. Now I've got deer hopping over my fence to eat the low-hanging fruit on the trees because they've got no place else to go. So, like I said, I hadn't planned on getting up here and saying anything, but I do want to reiterate what everybody else has said. There is a definite issue with trust. I did not find out about this until it had already been started. The deals had already been made. And that is a shame. And I just want to reiterate, I do vote.
Thank you.
My name is John Wilson. I also live on Candy Ave. A lot of my questions or comments have been somewhat mentioned, but we do have an issue with stormwater drainage constantly. 2 of those manholes are right in front of my home. They're constantly out there, portages out there. I'm not saying that they don't maintain them. What I'm saying is there's already a problem. So I don't know what they're thinking about as far as retention ponds or drainage or this natural flow. But I don't know if you've ever walked the property out there. It is not, I don't see how that's going to be possible, but I'm not a grade expert. There's going to be issues. That's without a doubt. Anybody that lives over there already knows that's going to be a major, major issue over there. Another thing that's been brought up is our property lines. I pay a separate tax for an easement supposedly behind my house. This is going to break into that I've been paying taxes on for years. I'm a 50-year Portage resident, and this is just crazy. I grew up on Jefferson Street, which is only 2 streets down. When I got old enough and came back from the service, I bought a street on Candy, 3 streets down from my parents. So I've seen the Green Tree go, I've seen all these newer neighborhoods and streets go in. Each time this happens, the issues are elevated. I understand everybody's love of the woods and those concerns, but between the traffic, the water, I really hope my street does not go through to 20, because even with the trees that they came in and cut down and left like this high, you have dust, mill dust, brake dust, the noise, you have all that coming from 20, just from that small spot that they ripped out of there. I mean, it's amazing, but that's the thing. People were calm for a little while because we were under the assumption, through whatever, the rumor control mill, however you want to say it, that there was going to be a rail through trails thing through there. So that kind of kept people at bay of asking more questions than we probably should have at the time, until the signs started popping up. And then we finally started getting notices. But like everyone else has already said, this is in a pretty far process already, and a lot of it's already been approved and okayed and all that without any of, these people have lived there 30, 40, 50 plus years. This is a original resident of Portage. The progress, it's good to see, but too much is too much. It is crazy to get anywhere in Portage anymore, anywhere. Old Porter Road, the traffic up and down there already, with just that one subdivision put in there where the old sand mine used to be, just even with that neighborhood added in over there, the traffic up and down there is crazy. It's just too much, too soon, too quick. I hope there's more we can do about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Eric. I'm actually a newcomer to Center Street. I'm on the southwest corner. So not all of my residents that live on the same street are affected, I guess, because their view was kind of covered up by other houses. But I do know one thing. Everyone in my neighborhood along Center Street has been there for 30-plus years, like many of you on Tanya and Candy Street. And the one thing that they talk about all the time is how quiet it is out there and the fact that they love their backyards. They invest all of their money, just like I do, in their backyards. Decks, bird feeders, deer feeders, fire pits. Same with me. Because we have the woods in the back. That's a calm place. I've heard that resonate amongst everyone. Go out in the morning for a cup of coffee, and that's going to be gone. Even with the buffer that they might put up, it's not going to be enough. You're going to see the cookie cutter houses back there like you see everywhere else. Okay, with the subdivision I live in Center, there's different square footages, bricks, tri-levels, bi-levels. It's different. This is a cookie cutter subdivision coming in. They're going to blow it out probably in 3 years, if possible. Put down the small 8,000 square foot lots up to 25,000, from what I've heard. But the biggest thing for me is my backyard's gone. I bought into this house, assuming I was going to retire at this house, because of the fact that I said the one thing I love is the neighbors, okay, and I love my backyard. I can make some repairs in the houses, and it's a 1978, and it's nicely put together, but my quality of life back there is going to be gone, even with the buffer that they may put up. The new construction is going to go on for 3 to 4 years. They're going to blow out 80 some odd lots, and that's gone. So I guess if this does happen by phase 3, I'm putting my house up for sale because it's now gone. They've got so many cornfields that are selling out to make these new subdivisions, like the first, the one they had on the agenda, which is great. That's just flat ground. It may affect a few people, but that's just flat ground. The trees and the wildlife are completely demolished. They're out of that area day one. And I'm not sure who the person that put the sign up a year and a half ago when they made that test cut in the woods on the north and south side of the old Porter. It may have been this gentleman over here, I'm not sure. I called the number a dozen times. He would not return any phone calls, and then his voicemail was filled up. So that may speak of the communication level that they have. They don't really want to hear what we have to say. They're just here because they have to be here to get your approval, okay? Hopefully, I've seen the attorneys for the plaintiff writing down notes, which is encouraging. But like I say, the wildlife and the trees and the border, it's all gone. Some people may stay. I won't be one of those people that stay because I want to have space. It's a great neighborhood, and really the selling point is the backyard. And I can't tell you, I've learned to live with the raccoons and the possums that aren't ideal, but I live with them because that's their territory, okay? I don't try to kill the raccoons that are running around rampant. I learned to try to live with them and put things on my garbage can so that they don't break in there, okay? Same thing with the chipmunks that get into the bird feeders. I learned to live with them. I'm not going to put up traps. I'm not big into those types of things. But, another thing, how many builders are they going to have back there? I know that the first person, the gentleman that came up, it sounds like it's going to be a one-person shot, and he makes the decisions. Is the developer also going to be the builder? Is it just one primary builder, and they just make it how it is, and it's choose A, B, or C, and this is your house, and that's it? They're all, like I say, everything I've seen is cookie cutter, first and foremost. But anyways, I didn't want to reiterate what everybody had to say. I just wanted to go on record saying that I don't approve of this. I think this was very quick put together. I got the notice a few days ago. I just got the map today. I hope you guys don't make a decision today. I hope you guys can, kind of kick this down the road so that they can come up with the answers that the questions that we're having today, and reconsider this at a later time and give us some opportunities so that we can, provide some kind of resistance against what you're doing, or at least, I guess, work together on this. Because it seems like right now, they want things this way, and obviously we're getting a lot of pushback from everybody here. So I do thank you for your time and the opportunity to talk in front of all you guys.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kim, along with Robert Talley. We live on Driftwood Street. According to this map that we just got tonight, it's kind of like 9 and 10, where the bike trail might be coming through. On 9/6 of 2022, we purchased the back lot behind the house. Rob moved there 5 years ago because of the back lot. But we pooled what money we managed to save through COVID and everything else and paid 5 times the value of what that back lot was worth. That was my life savings. That's how much I love this home, how much the woods mean to me, and how much the privacy and the protection of it. My daughter had a baby, and she's 3. She came from Skokie, Illinois, and didn't know what grass was. She stays with us every weekend in Portage because she thinks we live on a farm and that her pappy is Santa Claus because the deer are in the backyard. This is breaking my heart. I feel for all of you that have lived here for years and years and years because I want her to have that. I want her to have the deer. Pappy, can we feed the deer? Pappy, can we feed the birds? Pappy, can we do this? Pappy, the raccoon's in the garbage can. It's okay. I don't want this. And I understand change. I understand progress. I get it. But this is an older neighborhood. And I'm not an old woman, but I appreciate this old neighborhood, and I paid 5 times the value of that land and put my life savings into it to give it to mine, because the land's not going to be there. It's not going to be there anymore. That's all we have. I've just reiterated again, we're on Driftwood. At least give us a buffer if this is going to go through, but I sunk everything I had into it because I really believe in this town. So don't let us down. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to borrow your pen again. You have another pen? Reverend Michael Cooper, 5455 Clem Road in Portage. I want to thank the residents who have come out today. I've spent some time walking around the neighborhoods up there. A lot has been talked about the property, the area north of Old Porter. I want to point out just Old South. Just south of Old Porter, that property there, 101002. Oh, thank you. About 3.75 acres of that it shows as a wetland on the National Wetland Inventory. So I want to ask the board to get some response as to if that wetland has been delineated by the Army Corps of Engineers and if there's any mitigation that's going to be required for that wetland. I want to, reiterate how important wetlands are, not only our forest, but also our wetlands to keeping our water quality here good in Portage. And the area where the retention pond is and part of the road does show as a wetland on the National Wetland Inventory.
Thank you.
I need to say this to somebody in there. I'm sorry I'm late. My name is Austin Bonta, 2797 Woodward Street. There's not a lot I can say that hasn't been said already. I care deeply about the quality of life, about the traffic, about the tree cover in Portage. I think that the urban forest is part of our identity here in Portage for those of us who chose to come back here and stay here, and we love it. Again, I don't want to repeat an awful lot of what's been said. I want to get into, as best I can, the future and going forward. It seems like for a long time there have been two phases in community development, neighborhood development. The first phase is, oh, the situation is so fluid, we don't know what they're going to do. Don't even worry about it. We got to figure out, we got all this time. And then somehow it turns into, we've been spending all this time on it. We got the plans drawn up. Money's been spent. Lawyers have been hired. There's nothing we can do. How dare you stop progress? That's got to change. I was on this plan commission more than a year ago when the residents of this neighborhood came in, not because something was on the agenda, but because they had a very sincere question of why trees were being cut down. And the answer at the time was, we don't know. Property owners have the right to cut down trees. We get all that. But we had a very honest discussion about what the Plan Commission can and can't do. I've been here before, and I've done my best to try to make sure that people, residents, understand where the Plan Commission's hands are tied, where the city's tied, how the law works, all that. What I really want to say is this. The response that you usually get when you bring up concerns about woods being cut down in a city like Portage is people will say, you know, they used to say that about where your house is now. They'll usually say something along the lines of, there was a woods here once upon a time, and now your house is there, but you want to preserve that. Here's the difference, though, and I know that there might be people watching online already saying that to themselves. There might be people, perhaps on other sides of desks, saying that right now. Here's the thing. Most Portage neighborhoods, I believe including the one that most of the residents here are from, were built when we had an updated master plan for the city. Every city in Indiana has a comprehensive plan. They have to. And it's not just a wish list of things that you want for your city. It really is a comprehensive plan of how you want your future land use. It's a plan about what issues you want to tackle and where do you want the community to go. Best practice, and you all know this because when you join the Plan Commission, you're given a big booklet. Oh, I thought he was going to kick me off, sorry. You're given a... No problem, thank you. When you join the Plan Commission, you are given a big white binder that's basically a textbook of how to be the best Plan Commission that you can be. One of the big chapters is about community master plans. Best practice is you should update that every 5 years. Portage last did ours in 2009, which means that ours is woefully, woefully outdated. The problem with the whole situation of there's two phases. There's we don't know what's going on, it's all fluid, give us time, and it's all done, how dare you come and interrupt it now, is that we have not had adequate time for the people in this community to be involved in what we want the future to be. You guys are the Plan Commission, and when I talk about your hands being tied, a big part of that is what you do is approve things where you basically have to assess whether or not what's proposed meets code. But updating the city's comprehensive plan, master plan, strategic plan, you can call it whatever you want. We have to have one, and ours is outdated. It's a big part of bringing in the transparency so that residents know what they can expect. When people are buying land next to a woods, they should know what the plan is, and they should know what the rules are to maintain, at the very least, the tree cover. Because there definitely need to be buffers, and we do need to address how all this development is going to impact traffic. And I know that people get all excited talking about the woodland creatures, but seriously, they got to go somewhere. So we, the residents, deserve a plan for what's going to happen when we create any new room and displace the wildlife, or the wetlands for that matter, or how it impacts traffic. I could go on, but let me say another thing. At one time, I want to say 2017 or 18, but please don't fact check me, but I know it's somewhere in that range. A group of people on the Plan Commission identified 24 properties on Route 20 with mixed zoning issues, and we warned about potential complications and that those need to be addressed. And here we are discussing a property with a strange zoning issue and needs to be addressed, but now we're here with a whole, somebody ready to do something with it. I'm asking you guys at the Plan Commission. Right now, it's just an ask. Might change later, might be. But anyway, for now, it's just an ask. Call for, begin the process of updating our city's master plan. I don't know what can be done about this now that we're at this stage with this development, But what I do know is that anything that can be done to mitigate the bad effects of it should be done. But for going forward, it is time that we have a real plan for the city's future written down like we used to do every 5 years. 15 years is too long. It's time for the Plan Commission to do some planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak against the petitioner? If not, I close the public hearing.
I guess starting with the last things first is, this isn't a rush to how we got here today. While it may be, for some of these people, the first time they've seen these plans, I can assure you this isn't the first time. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. I understand.
And
Okay.
it's harder for them.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me now. Anyway, as I was saying, that this was not a rush to get here this evening. I can assure you there's been a tremendous amount of time and effort spent both on the private side and as well as before your Development Review Committee publicly and through many conversations had with staff level, not just including AJ, but others, your engineering department, and so on. So when this project is developed, adherence to the comprehensive plan and to your zoning ordinance is something that's carefully attended to. And as I indicated earlier, there are no variances to this project being sought as part of this development. All of the lots exceed the minimum lot sizes. The roads are publicly dedicated roads built to construction standards established by the city of Portage. So again, this is not something we hurried in and threw together. I'm sure Kevin can attest to the number of hours and revisions to this plan to even get to this point today. Now, having said that, we're not ignoring anything that anyone's saying, and as part of the process, as you well know, there is this hearing tonight, which is a public hearing, which affords all of these people the opportunity to have notice of this hearing, come to this hearing, make their comments known, and those are the types of things that we hear. As one gentleman mentioned, I write down, and we address those particular items. Can we address them all tonight? Perhaps not. But those are the things that we can hear and we can take away from this meeting to continue to address, just like we have at the staff level, in order to even get here this evening. So we have looked at all of these different items and carefully done so. No changes have been made to any zoning. The property that's zoned commercial at the north end on US 20 rather is, it always has been, at least throughout my client's ownership, zoned commercial. So nothing has changed there. No one has sought any changes to zoning, whether it's on that parcel or otherwise. And answering an additional question about the wetland that the gentleman just mentioned, there is no wetland on the site. We had soil scientist John McQuestion, who's very well known in Indiana as having done that type of research, looked at this site and determined that there is no wetland on the property. So we've...
Just as clarification too, that does also get reviewed and approved by DNR and IDEM as well to verify that letter. They make secondary visits to that site to do that.
And so in addition to how this project is thought about, how it's laid out and those sorts of things, it takes into account the trail, and I believe it was a lady earlier questioned how did that come to be. That's part of the city's plan for that particular area. So we incorporated what their desire was for that trail into this project specifically, in addition to adding the 2 access points into this project. So the project does also include sidewalks throughout. So the trail system abuts the property, ends up in the subdivision, and throughout the project, when it's ultimately built out, there will be sidewalks throughout the entirety of the development. These are going to be new homes. Who's going to build them? We don't know the answer to that question at this time. Could they be ranch homes? Perhaps. Could they be two-story homes? That could be the case as well. That will be up to that particular homeowner to determine what style of home that they would like to have on their property. One of the items we did mention earlier is that we removed an extension of Candy Avenue. That was something that was proposed early on, and that was exchanged for providing additional buffering and as I mentioned earlier, the preservation area. Who determines what's an unsafe tree? I don't know the answer to that question, but it allows whoever owns that property to make that determination, and the intent of that area is to keep it in its natural state. However, we don't want trees that are decaying, potentially falling, either falling on people or otherwise damaging property. So those things are in place, and again, that's part of the covenants and as part of the plat itself. The property, it was mentioned, the buffering, they're on both sides, east and west of this parcel. These people do have natural buffers in effect. The parcels to the west, on the west side of the trail system that's proposed, those are very deep lots now. I'm not exactly sure how they ultimately became that configuration. The lady spoke nearly to the end here, indicated that she just acquired some additional property there, and those buffer zones exist.
Excuse me.
Okay, or perhaps on the
There-
other. Okay, yeah, okay.
He's speaking, we're answering questions.
Okay. And perhaps, and I was going to get, and perhaps her home is located on the east side of the project. There is a strip of property on that side of the proposed development that abuts these homes, that some of them are owned by the actual homeowners. Some of those segments are owned by the Board of Commissioners, probably through some form of a tax sale. But I can assure you, none of the construction on this site includes anyone's land other than that owned by the developer.
And just to be clear too, because I think this was a confusion question by most of the audience here tonight, that the property on the west side, the strip north-south, is was part of a dedicated right-of-way to the city that I don't think is ever ended up being dedicated, but that is owned by the city itself. So the trail system, which will include an additional 40 feet on our west side of the property in combination with that strip of the cities to convey the full 40 feet, I believe, of land to create the bike trail. So it will be situated on the west side of the property in conjunction with that 25-foot that the city already owns. It will be a 40-foot strip of land, north-south.
And so part of, as you know, part of the review process, one of the ladies early on indicated she had prepared a letter and had a series of different items that she mentioned about the impact on services, if I can just generally use that term. As you know, in order to even get here tonight, it isn't us just preparing a plan and submitting it and requesting participation here tonight. We have to go through a very lengthy process where your various staff members, whether it's sanitary, sewer, storm sewer, water, parks, police, all of those people weigh in and have input on the particular site, whether these things are, what kind of impact do they have on the use of the property? Will it affect the adjoining property owners? And again, we've pretty exhaustively gone through that list with staff members, and tonight the plan that's before you is the most recent iteration of that, which encompasses all of those various comments, including that of stormwater. And Kevin, if you'd like to just enhance on that a little bit.
And just so everybody's aware, and I'm sure you guys are, but I understand the general public is not aware of how a lot of these situations come to be. Our stormwater review process went through an exhaustive process. The city hires a third-party reviewing engineer to review stormwater infrastructure. That we have a plan put in place that also accepts additional buffer area of water, buffer not as in landscape, but as in what we think we can take into our system stormwater-wise. That is reviewed by your guys' hired third-party engineer. Comments are made, plans are altered, calculations have been completed, profiling, all of the standard requirements that are met to prove based on the city's allowable water release rate, that we can actually get this done. That has all been factored through, and the same is also true with the sanitary sewer process as well as the water. All those items are looked at by individuals, either by your staff or by hired third parties to do that. So that process in and of itself, which is also kind of separate from the process that we deal specifically with the city staff at the staff level, is done separately. So not only do we have you guys looking at these plans, double checking our work, but we've got multiple third-party entities reviewing our work, sending comments and us modifying plans or explaining ourselves in certain situations. I want to make sure that the audience is also aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
There was another question that came up from my list. It was about rentals. And this property is zoned R1, so no duplexes can be built there. But it would be a city code if somebody rented your property, or if you rented your property, you moved to Florida or something like that. So that has really nothing to do with these developers.
Just as clarification, the property is owned R2.
R2, okay, thank you.
Correct.
Now I'm going to open to questions from the commission.
Are you planning to put together a sketch plat for the natural features for the preservation of that?
Do you want me to wait or just answer as we go? Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Mr. Gilliana, the principal behind, he was out on the site, and we can generate a drawing of some sort for you, yes.
I have a question for AJ. Just recently, I think it was another meeting, we had a map, updated map on flooding and watershed, and I believe that's what it was. Is it possible to pull that map up and see where this property lays in a wetlands and water?
So, to your question, Commissioner LeBoy, there was a public comment that there's wetlands identified on an inventory. However, I believe you've been, or hired a contractor to be directly on site to do a wetland delineation, have confirmed that with other agencies. So instead of drawing a map up that might be looked at 30,000 feet, how we would act as the city is we would trust a soil scientist, somebody like a John McQuestion, who would have boots on the ground, conduct an inventory, provide that report to the state of Indiana or the Army Corps to make a determination as to whether or not there's wetlands on the site. So instead of, for me, I would refer to a wetlands map on a desktop search initially. And I believe these gentlemen may have done that as well, why they felt the need to hire a soil scientist to come on site. But as we drill into knowing what really is on the ground, I would be deferring to their soil scientist in the state of Indiana and the federal government to make a final determination as to whether or not there's wetlands on the property.
And that is exactly the scenario. In our pre-concept work, there's certain triggers that I look for immediately: flood zone, wetlands, soil types, a collective group of things that, for me, might tell a client right from the get-go, this is not a good viable project. So obviously, the wetlands inventory map, which is actually produced by IU grad students, which is not government necessarily, it's run by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but it's not updated by them. So whenever we see that, or even if we have boots on the ground in the process of surveying and see a questionable area, maybe we see cattails and whatnot, we say, okay, let's pump the brakes, we need to double check this. So that was exactly the case. We saw wetland inventory, wetland mapper. We saw wetlands, we call John McQuestion, have him come out. He gets boots on the grounds. He's the professional that makes the call on what is actually there and what's not. He creates a report, sends that into DNR, that gets checked by, again, as I said, I believe both by DNR and by IDEM on that.
AJ, could you give any comments from storm sewers?
Yes.
Looking for any upgrades or how we're handling that?
I have a letter dated May 9th of 2023 from Luke Sherry, who's the consulting engineer to the storm and sanitary boards of the city of Portage. And this letter is corrected to the department as requested. Christopher Burke has reviewed a material provided during Development Review Committee meetings for the proposed Northwood Trail subdivision located in the city of Portage. Based on a review of that information, all of their comments have been addressed and they have no further comments. So I would accept this letter as a statement that sanitary and storm has been reviewed and approved by the consulting engineer of those boards.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Have you addressed any of the possible utility conflicts along Old Porter?
Yeah, you and I have had a few conversations on that. There are definitely some concerns along there, and I think that's something that we need to collectively figure out how we want to convey that. You know, we kind of talked about the potential for potholing to determine that. We've also talked about the theoretical possibility of having to, based on Indiana 811 underground locates, you know, where those utilities actually are, plus or minus within, you know, a feet or two, you know, make on-field verifications of where those are. That's definitely something that still needs to get ironed out between us and you guys as a board on what's going to make everybody happy as to how we deal with that.
And if I could expand on that, in the staff report, I've notified the commission members of a few things that I have questions on. And the first is Old Porter Road. Chip has conducted his review of the plans for Old Porter Road and has a number of questions that remain outstanding. However, that's an existing city street in the city of Portage under the jurisdiction of the City of Portage Board of Public Works and Safety. And I believe that matter is going to be better resolved there. I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth and some tough decisions the Board of Works is going to need to make as it relates to how this development impacts Old Porter Road. This is a fairly unique situation in the city where we have a developer impacting an existing road that serves residents here in our community. I have a lot of questions about, you know, whether it's the initial work of design, understanding what's there, but I also have other questions about schedule, how Old Porter Road would be impacted during construction, and how emergency services and schools and all that would be moving through this area during construction. So I think there's a lot of outstanding questions that I have that Chip's articulated in his review comments for this development that are going to need the attention of the Board of Works. So at what point, if whatever decision is ultimately made by the commission, I would have to make that recommend that being a contingency of anything you do, because there are some outstanding questions that I don't believe we're going to be able to address here, and I would have to say I don't think it's the jurisdiction of this board since it's an existing public street.
Correct.
Do you have a estimated time frame on resolution to something like this, 30, 60?
We're not as far ahead as some folks have stated during the meeting. There are a lot of outstanding questions, and I think that before we get ahead of any decision that this commission makes, I don't have those answers, because first of all, you need to act. You need to hear public comment. We need to do some further investigation with potholing and better understanding existing utilities along Old Porter Road. So there are a number of outstanding questions. So to give a schedule like that would be very premature.
One of my questions was where you stand, the tree preservation and the landscape buffering due to the current stormwater design. It doesn't look like tree preservation's part of the plan. Can't happen. Have you looked into redoing that?
Yeah, so we've had some conversations with Luke Sherry, again, your reviewing engineer on stormwater infrastructure. Again, the site's pretty unique in the fact that there appears to be a lot of grade change, but when you look at the grade from one side of the site to the other site, there's very minimal grade change. Again, normally this wouldn't be as much of an issue because we'd be able to utilize overland flow routes to move water on top of the ground rather than underneath it, so that we would be able to, so to speak, dig less into the ground on these things. But that being the case on this site, because it's relatively flat, both by potentially natural means or what was done back in the 60s with mining, is hard to say. But the issue that you're stating, the tree preservation within those, we don't have any other solutions to those areas, regardless of the fact that water has to get from those property edges into the main system. We did, I think I mentioned this before, when we do our, what we call catchment calculations to determine how much water is actually entering the system, we included a 50-foot buffer around the entirety of the parent parcel of this. So that's assuming that some of that water from the rear homes that's kind of just naturally flowing into this area is going to enter our system. So pipes are sized both to help that stormwater capability, but also just help move that through. And because of the no overland flow, we're kind of left with larger pipes in the ground than what any one of us would prefer.
Have you met with the city stormwater engineer to talk about alternative
We have.
options?
We've had a number of discussions with him on this, and I think that if you go back to one of the DRC items, that also might have actually been mentioned in the minutes, that he and I have had probably 3, 4, 5 different conversations on the matter.
And if I could add to that, I think what we heard from a lot of folks, some who may be more reluctant to accept that there might be development here, we hear about buffering, and I just want to set it straight. As you look at the plat, as the residents look at the plat and the plan that was handed out tonight, there's some areas that, some easements that show a drainage / preservation, and this is something you and I spoke about at Attorney Ferngren, that I don't want to, I want to be clear about setting expectations.
Understood.
And if, is what's stated in the staff report, they can't work in unison. So if tree preservation is expected, they're not going to be preserved in drainage easements. As Mr. Koros represented here, you know, that drainage system is going to include structures, inlets, storm pipe, that is going to be cleared. And that is where that rear yard drainage system will be placed. And I mentioned this to Bill in a conversation with him, again, to set the expectations of ourselves and the residents who live adjacent, if we have a drainage easement on that plat that you're looking at, it will not have trees on it. It may one day in the future have trees, but any sort of preservation effort it's not gonna happen, because those 15-foot drainage easements will need to be cleared so those structures and those pipes can be placed in the ground.
And those are sheets C3.0 through C3.3.
Can I answer a couple questions?
Absolutely.
There was a couple folks in the audience that asked about the trail. I believe that the developers' representatives indicated that they've been working with the city with the platting of that outlot. I believe it's outlot area 1. That is consistent with the planning the community does. That is identified in the City of Portage Park's master plan as a trail location. We are building our trail system all the time. The long-term, and most recently, we built that connection to the Marquette Greenway Trail on Jensen Drive that terminates in a circle at the northeast corner of Jensen and US Highway 20. The long-term plan would be a grade-separated trail. Again, it takes generations to build these things. Likely in the future, it's a scenario that looks more like how the Brickyard crosses US 20 in the town of Porter. But it would be a bridge, or how we cross 149 on the Prairie Dillon Trail between Portage and Chesterton. So there are plans for these things. Again, these things take long periods of time to implement, but there was a specific question. No, the intention is to not push people out at the intersection of Jensen and 20 and fend for themselves. The plan is to provide along that grade separated facility so as to provide a safe egress or safe access at a grade separated facility. Efforts are made to do that as trails get built where you finally get segments connecting to one another. That's the next logical step, is to bridge heavier traffic roads. So I wanted to be clear on that, the developer had worked with the city in their past planning efforts for that trail, and the long-term plan would be a grade separated facility over the highway. The plan there, and I think somebody asked a question about driftwood, and I believe it was Ms. Talley. If you look at the unrecorded Pleasant Meadows subdivision, there was supposed to be another street to the east. That's why the half width of that. That's why the half width is there. So if we're going to go through history, that's why that 25 feet is there. If you notice that lot right here is the same size as that lot right there. So if you go across, was the long-term plan, going across the subdivision. That is a 20-foot half width of what would have been a public right-of-way for the purposes of providing half the width of a public street for future houses that would have been facing to the east. At the time, that property was owned by Bethlehem Steel. Well, it's probably been before Bethlehem Steel. So I get more likely the property ownership ended there, and there was going to be a subsequent development to the east. The developers worked with us, so in addition to the 25 feet, I believe there's an additional 15 feet in that outlot A that would be used for the construction of that trail. Right now, that trail would be proposed to end at Old Porter Road, and the next question for the city is identifying the best route, whether it's east on Old Porter Road to get over to Samuelson. We know the complications with that, with crossing the railroad tracks at that pretty complicated intersection. The other option would be go to the east along, or west, I'm sorry, along Old Porter Road. And we have some grade issues and some other things on Old Porter Road. So each have their challenges, but we're building trails 1 mile at a time. And for any of us who have been around here long enough, it took us many years to build all of the Prairie Dillon Trail, and we're only so far with the Iron Horse Trail. So the developer's been working very closely with that to help us implement our long-term plans and comprehensive plans that we have for the city as it relates to park infrastructure. You're welcome.
Staff, what is the date of the next Planning Commission meeting?
August 7th, that'd be Monday, August 7th. No, no problem.
AJ, when is the Board of Works meeting?
The Board of Works meets the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. I believe their next meeting is next Tuesday. There we go. They're meeting tomorrow. And this petition is not on the agenda yet.
No.
We're not gonna get ahead of ourselves. The first approval is the Plan Commission. We just held our public hearing, so we're not ready to go before the board works.
Can I ask a question? AJ, you said something about an easement, a drainage easement and a preservation. Did you say there's gonna be a tile put in there or a sewer put there?
So, Mr. Uzelak, I believe this is your house right here?
Yep.
I got it, okay. So you'll see the small piece of property that was added to your parcel. That's partial 26A. The next 15 feet, where I don't know if you can see the cursor?
Yep.
Right here. That's where the plat for this subdivision shows a 15-foot drainage and preservation easement.
Is there gonna be a
I
drainage
would,
pipe
I would respond to you that yes, there will be there. And so that was a comment I made, that there will be no preservation of the tree, because to install the tile,
Right,
the
absolutely.
structures,
So,
that's,
putting a 15-foot parking lot behind my house, okay.
it'll be, yeah, it'll be, like a lawn, correct?
Yeah.
And wherever,
That's gonna be in someone's backyard on their site.
yes, sir. The new, and to answer, or to go along, or answer to that question more, that is the standard we have for subdivision design. Over the years, and I think some of the folks here mentioned that they've had some water problems. The engineers, as we've modified and updated city development standards, have required developers to install rear yard drainage. And that's the solution here. In some cases, and what I was really hoping the engineers could get together and figure out more overland pathways for drainage, so that this wouldn't be the effect of having to install rear yard drainage in the backyards. But I'm gonna have to take the word of Mr. Koros and our engineer, who have stated that they've worked themselves through and that they find it to be consistent with what we require in the city for that infrastructure.
Thank you.
And I'd also just like to kind of piggyback on that, in the fact that there's been a few comments in which drainage has been an issue both in front and rear yards from the audience here tonight. And these rear catch basins, while not a parking lot per se, more of a lawn, as Mr. Monroe has mentioned, will actually help drainage areas in these areas. I'd like to make sure that that's understood as well.
I thank you for raising your hand, but our public meeting is closed. But I do thank you for raising your hand, and, I agree, there's a lot more questions that we need to answer. And you can submit any other questions you have to staff at the city. At the city.
So there won't be any more public, or we can put on our input on this?
The public hearing is done today.
But what I'm saying, like, when it comes up again, when you guys are gonna.
No, the public hearing is complete. But if you have questions and turn them in, we will make sure that they are addressed. I can't hear you.
Go to your office to give you a question? I don't know how to submit a question. Where?
Up in the planning department, upstairs. You walk in the front door, you walk up to the stairs on the right, and questions that you have about this, you can go ahead and turn them in.
I'm going to make a motion to continue this till the August 7th meeting so that we can have a submission of a sketch plat to preserve natural features and to resolve some of these open issues, and we'll revisit this August 7th.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Monroe, could you call roll?
Tom Cherry? Yes. Gina Geis-Hurst?
Yes.
Sam LaBoy?
Yes.
John Harrison?
Yes.
Charles Thompson?
Yes.
Melissa Weidenbach?
Yes.
Kevin Witherspoon?
Yes.
Denise Little?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
guys. See you next month.
Yeah, I can, I hope so.
Grab that board, I can slip that sheet back.
Our meeting is not complete, so if you have questions, write them down, drop them off. We'll get them taken care of. Mr. Monroe, could you call our final order of business?
The next item of business is M0223, resolution of the Portage Plan Commission approving amendments to the declaratory resolutions for the Southport Economic Development Area is previously approved and adopted by the City of Portage Redevelopment Commission.
And I'm sure you're going to explain everything to us.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, would you? Thank you, Michael. If you'd give me a second. I will not. First recommended I give the Cliff Notes version of this.
My actual terminology was, what it really means, don't read it out loud.
So before you this evening is a resolution of the Plan Commission approving amendments to the declaratory resolution for the Southport Economic Development Area as previously approved by the City of Portage Redevelopment Commission. The Redevelopment Commission has been working closely with the developers of Dayton Street Partners. That is a development that you approved a planned development for west of Coca-Cola. And it's indicated here as that property, that's the property, okay? You'll remember that they received PD approval and are proposing upwards of 500,000 square feet for flex industrial commercial office space. They have approached the Redevelopment Commission about securing economic development bonds so that they can offset costs associated with infrastructure, the installation of public infrastructure for this development. What this resolution does tonight is it confirms that Dayton Street Partners is building a project that is consistent with the city's planning. This area has been zoned BP. Most recently, this commission approved a planned development for Dayton Street Partners. It would be staff's recommendation, it would be staff's observation that this project is consistent with the planning of the City of Portage. Most recently by your decision to approve the Dayton Street Partners plan development. And it would be our recommendation to approve the resolution. This resolution and the previous resolution adopted by the Redevelopment Commission will be forwarded to the Common Council for approval, I believe, at their August 1st meeting.
Questions? It was very confusing.
It's been a while since we've done one of these. The last one, a declaratory resolution like this, amending, would have been for the promenade, the development north of Founder Square. And prior to that would have probably been Fronius. So it's been a while since the commission has seen one of these resolutions before you for consideration.
No questions? May I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the amendments to the declaratory resolutions.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Could you call roll?
Tom Cherry,
Yes.
Gina Geist-Hurst,
Yes.
Sam LaBoy,
Yes.
John Harrison,
Yes.
Charles Thompson,
Yes.
Melissa Weidenbach,
Yes.
Kevin Witherspoon,
Yes.
Denise Little.
Yes. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.